There's this balance of trying to, strike the balance between employment and inflation, and having the president intervene is kind of outside of the remit of the Fed. And
Right.
actually,
to be independent.
it is, yeah, exactly. And Powell's been very, fierce about defending that independence. Just now, he was asked if Trump asked you to step aside or resign, would you do it? And he just flatly said no, he would not leave. And he says that he doesn't believe that the president has the legal authority to fire him.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook. We talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by economics reporter Zach Halaschak. Zach, what was the market reaction to former President Donald Trump becoming future President Donald Trump?
Well, the stock market itself was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, the stocks went up, I think it was 1,500 points in one day, which was the fourth most the stock market or the Dow Jones has ever increased by. And then the other three ahead of that were all during the COVID pandemic. So it was a hugely positive reaction on Wall Street. And then if you're looking in the cryptocurrency space too, Trump is largely seen as very favorable to the industry and kind of ran on this platform of growing the cryptocurrency industry in the U.S. and being more favorable regulation-wise to the space. So you saw Bitcoin actually break its all-time high in the hours after Trump it became apparent that Trump was going to win the presidency, and it's still up. And I think you're going to see Bitcoin kind of being buoyed by that. In other markets, you saw like steel prices went up. U.S. steel stocks went up because of the tariff agenda, and that would help boost manufacturing domestically. So you saw reactions there. And then on things like the dollar and foreign currencies, dollar went up on his protectionist policies, and then foreign currencies like the peso went down.
So you mentioned tariffs. So Trump has already been president once,
Yes.
and he's outlined a number of different policies during the course of this campaign that just concluded. What are some of the things we're expecting for his second-term economic agenda?
Yeah, so tariffs are going to be a big part of that. And I actually just wrote a story about how, he has all these tariff proposals, and the question is, well, can he come in and do that unilaterally, or is he going to need Congress? And maybe surprisingly, a lot of this, including the universal across-the-board tariffs, he could probably do just through the executive. They would undoubtedly face court challenges, but at least for a while or temporarily, he could do these tariffs on day one, really. One part of this tariff agenda that needs Congress is the Reciprocal Trade Act, which is a law that would basically give him the power to impose equal tariffs on countries versus their tariffs on us. Congress would need to approve that, so we'd need allies in Congress to do that. But you're also going to see tax cuts. That's something else in his economic agenda. He's been pushing for lowering the corporate tax rate to 15%. I think that might have some trouble on Capitol Hill just because, a lot of his proposals increase the deficit and, increase deficit spending. So it's kind of a tricky situation, but I think you'll see a renewal of all the 2017 Trump tax cuts, especially if Republicans get the trifecta and end up getting the House as well. Right now they have the presidency and the Senate, but the House is still in question. So that's going to be the biggest economic legislation, will be extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which are set to expire at the end of this coming year.
And obviously, there's still the Federal Reserve and taking into consideration interest rates. What's the latest news there?
Yeah, so the Fed just cut interest rates again. It cut them by 25 basis points, or a quarter of a percentage point. This was the second time since the Fed started raising interest rates that they actually cut. The first time was in September when the Fed cut by a half percentage point, so double what it did today. But you're now seeing 75 basis point lower interest rates. That's good for consumers. I mean, people who are going out to buy a car, anything that involves interest rates, mortgages, typically they kind of move in tandem, although they haven't recently. Mortgage rates have been going up despite interest rates going down. So it's going to be interesting to see where that equilibrium is and how that dynamic plays out. But yeah, Fed cut again. We're expecting, the Fed to keep cutting over the next year or so, as long as inflation stays down around that 2% level. But if we start seeing inflation pop back up today, Fed Chairman Powell said, I can't rule out the concept that we might have another rate increase down the road, but he said it's not like the assumed or likely scenario.
So that could set up some conflict with President Trump.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in the first term, Trump's first term, he and Powell kind of openly quarreled over, monetary policy. Trump was upset that Powell was raising rates too quickly, or not bringing them down too quickly. But basically, given a good rule of thumb, as presidents like to see interest rates go down because it boosts things like GDP, better for the labor market, that sort of thing. But it's also inflationary, and so there's this balance of trying to strike the balance between employment and inflation, and having the president intervene is kind of outside of the remit of the Fed, and
Actually, be independent.
it is, yeah, exactly. And Powell's been very, fierce about defending that independence. Just now, he was asked if Trump asked you to step aside or resign, would you do it? And he just flatly said no, he would not leave. And he says that he doesn't believe that the president has the legal authority to fire him. So we'll see.
They have set terms.
Yeah, they do, and his term is expected to expire, I believe, in two or 3 years. So it'll be into the Trump presidency when he would presumably resign, and then Trump would make another appointment. But in the meantime, I think you're going to see a lot of tension between the executive and the Fed, the executive office and the Fed. So we'll see how that plays out. But last time, it didn't really. Trump never really had much sway over getting. Powell obviously didn't step aside. He didn't, get demoted or anything like that. But with the second Trump term, I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep.
You can read Zach and the rest of our policy team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.